Hi everyone, welcome. I'm out here in my yard, and what you see here is my outdoor worm bag. It's a system that I've been running for a few years now. Sometimes I do an overwinter project on that thing. Sometimes I chicken out and I bring the worms inside. So we'll see how this winter goes. Maybe we'll try another overwinter project. Maybe we'll decide to keep the worms warm so they can keep working for us. What you see over here is my compost barrel that I make reference to once in a while. I recently did some weeding, and a whole bunch of it at that, and you can see I didn't use all of it as bedding in the compost barrel. I saved some of it for our worm bag. I don't know if we're going to use it all because it is quite a bit. And besides getting a whole bunch of weeds as bedding, we're going to be jumping on the bandwagon of giving them this forbidden type of food, which is meat. In this case it's chicken breast. I'm going to get a few pieces of corn cob to go with that as well. I'm going to put on a glove and we're going to get to work feeding these little guys. If I'm not mistaken, it's been 12 days since the last time this system got fed, and at that time we gave them a whole bunch of pumpkin, and I think there was some corn cobs there as well. Corn cobs will definitely be showing leftovers even after that much time, but the pumpkin bits they were given, I presume, are going to be gone. So let's go ahead and dig in here, see how things are looking. That piece of plywood that covers things here really does a good job keeping the moisture in the system, not letting it evaporate. But on the flip side of that, it also prevents rainwater from entering the system. So once in a while, when I know that there's some rainy weather in store for us here, I just leave the top coverings off, and I believe that's what I'm going to do today. We're going to leave this thing uncovered so that the rain that's in the forecast can drizzle in and dampen things here. Not so much because of the moisture level of the existing material, I think because of the dryness of the new bedding we're going to be plopping in here. I thought it might benefit the system to get a little bit of extra moisture, a little bit of rainwater dropping in to help moisten all that crabgrass that was pulled and weeded out. So at the end, we're not going to cover up, we'll leave it more or less uncovered, and then hopefully the rain will come in and help dampen things. So I just did a little bit of fluffing up of the materials in the bin. Sometimes I'm just curious about the outer edges, because it is around the outer edges of the plywood that the system can air out a little bit. Not to mention the fact that the bag itself also permits a little bit of the moisture in the system to leave. So I sometimes wonder how the outer edges of the system are doing. Fortunately, they're doing quite nicely right now. Nice and damp. I'm already starting to encounter some of the leftovers from the last feeding, some of these corn cobs they got last time. The worms always seem to get all over these things. I'm surprised. After this much time, I would have thought that it would have been a little bit easier to break one of those. But I guess it just hasn't gotten to that point yet. Alright. I can't recall how many of those we fed last time, but we'll probably encounter a few of them. I guess in addition to corn cobs, we must have also given them some husks. The stem end of it is almost like a piece of wood. It's going to take a while, I bet, but the rest of it is just leaves for the most part. A little bit of that silk. Things are getting pretty compressed here. Oh no, we're not. I thought it was really getting dense down at the bottom, but I really just bottomed out, was all that happened there. I did fold down the top of this thing, so it's a little deceiving. I kind of anticipate that it's going to be a little bit deeper because of where my eye sees the top rim of the container. And then when I hit the bottom, I realized that we've actually reduced the overall depth of the system by folding back the top edge. And I suppose at some point we can, you know, unfold that and raise its rim to, you know, have a little bit more capacity if we run out of space. You can see I'm already coming right up to the edge of the container, stacking up the material to allow us to check out what's going down the middle. I suppose if there was any of that pumpkin we fed last time remaining, they'd be all over it in a big worm ball pigging out on this stuff, but that stuff probably vanished within the first few days, and now they're just continuing to work on little residual bits and pieces of leftover whatever they can find. And there's all kinds of stuff in here, you know. So they're not going to go hungry, that's for sure. Not only is the food that they get from my kitchen, all the kitchen scraps and stuff, all this stuff that goes in as bedding, whether it's leaves or if it's the seeds that drop off of my maple or whatever the case may be, whether it's food or bedding, it all really just ends up being food. So here are those maple seeds. They're working it. I assume that the maple seeds are probably a little bit more of a food than they are a bedding because of the seed. I assume that the seeds are really nutritious for them as they break down and get to eat them. Okay, so I guess my idea here was to bring in some of that bedding and use it as the foundation for the feeding. Drop it in on the bottom, a little bit of a platform. That'll put that bedding really into the line of fire and probably spur on a good bit of worm activity down low. But you can see it's going in rather dry. And then onto that, I thought we might start stacking in some of these leftovers. I don't know what this is. Some sort of a seed, but I don't recognize what it's from. Oh, I just broke it. I'm even wondering if there's a worm. I guess since it breaks, it's maybe been infiltrated already. There do seem to be a few worms in there right in between the crack. So I didn't really break it. It was already broken, it seems. Let's see. Let's get these leftover corn cob bits down into the feeding area. I don't know if we've got them all. Not so important, but I just figured to put that down low, drop it in before we maybe grab another bundle of this stuff here. Once again, a little bit dry, but like I said, I'm going to be leaving this thing uncovered, and with a few days of rain forecasted, and I think the moisture levels in here will be just fine. Not to mention the fact that the moisture level throughout the material is quite adequate the way it is anyway. And I suppose I was kind of hoping that these pieces of paper, these cardboard, paper plates, might last a little while and enable us to come back at some point to check in on how this feeding of forbidden food is coming along. But I've got a feeling it's going to result in the same outcome that we've seen on other channels where we've seen various types of meats get fed to the worms. I think the worms are just going to go for it, And who knows, maybe it's not even just the worms. I'm assuming it's going to be a lot of the helper creatures in the bin coming up to also nibble on this stuff. So we're just kind of combining all the delicious foods here onto the plate. Seems to cover everything up pretty thoroughly here. And then maybe even by covering it up a little bit like so, at some point in the near future we can come back and get a look at how things are progressing here. Alright, well, I think before covering up, maybe we just drop in another little bundle of, I don't know, do we? I'm questioning whether I want to put too much or any more of this stuff. See, I even just slipped saying too much, anticipating that I might be putting in too much. But then again, if you really treat it as bedding, I think the go-to understanding between worm farmers is that you can never really go overboard with bedding. So you know what, let's not worry about it. Let's just throw it in there and let them have at it. And then we can cover up with the existing materials that are surrounding it. I think by being uncovered, hopefully it'll keep things nice and comfortable and damp so that the worms can just get all over what they've been given. And then I was even thinking of maybe covering up with some of those weeds, sort of the way you saw in my compost barrel. Because we are now definitely approaching the top rim of this container. I don't think I'm going to unfold it quite yet. I think we're just going to leave it as is. Here's another stem of a corn cob. It's just interesting. I've never really peeled back the husk to be able to get a good look at the stem. The stem has an interesting kind of shape to it. It has these little bulbs or whatever. But you can see the worms do a number on that stuff. They're working it down, and even that tougher stem will get worked down too. So it'll all get eaten. I'm just debating at this point whether I want to sprinkle a little bit more on top or not. I mean, if we don't, then there's always that chance that some critters are gonna sense what's in here and try to come get some of it. I mean, they'll do that anyway, whether or not I want them to. Even when that covering's on here, they'll just reach around the edge of it and try to pull up whatever they can to see what they can eat. And, you know, I don't worry too much about that, but if we leave it completely uncovered, there is a chance that this thing will be full of holes when we get back. I think I'm going to take my chances on that, but we will sprinkle at least one of these little bundles across the top. I'll try to expand it out so that it covers the entire top surface, and then that's just the way we're going to leave it. We're not going to cover up. We're going to let the rain fall on it over the next few days, and then at some point, maybe after the rain period has ended, I'll just come back with the covering just to restore the protective top on here, to make sure we don't get little raiders coming in here to try to take advantage of the yummy stuff that's been placed in here. I mean, I don't know, you know how animals are, they could sense stuff. If there's a big pile of meat down in here, even though it's covered with a paper plate, even though it's covered with a bunch of castings and a bunch of crabgrass, I bet you some creatures will sense it and go for it. So hopefully I don't come back to this being a big mess, so I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. My filthy fingers. All right, whatever, doesn't matter. This is worm farming after all, isn't it? But that's it for the video, everyone. I got a few things I've got to clean up and put away, but I'm not going to bore you with that. That stuff's boring. But before I go, let me just really quickly say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's really appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.